We're finally
After
here.
many technical issues of 1 hour. We're here. There's no noise in the audio. Hooray!
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was painful. But now we look and sound beautiful.
Thank you for that.
With the desktop light.
That was a lot. Yeah. That was a lot.
So we're going to get a bit... Do, 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 do.
Oh, we're gonna talk about the old Mr.
Mr. Bob Lazar and UFOs.
And UFOs and a bit of Roswell.
Bit of Roswell, yeah. So, yeah, Scotty was the one investigating this recently and, went down some rabbit holes, is it, if I'm not mistaken?
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people have, yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Yes, I did. I went down the Bob. It's always been in my head. Going about, Anyway, yes, Bob Lazar.
Yeah, so I was looking into it, this during this week and, having, a listen to people coming out about, Area S4, people...
Area 51.
Area 51.
Sightings of UFOs.
Sightings of UFOs, but then it's gotten to a point where it's because you believe back in the day, it's all just some rubbish, but then it's that's what they want you to believe, and it's at this point now, it's well, there's fully evidence that
There's so much footage.
evidence and footage of UFOs and not necessarily aliens, but technology from other worlds are here,
Yeah.
confirmed.
Yeah, so...
Confirmed.
What it is and who Bob Lazar is, he's a guy that was hired by the American government to... He's a scientist, basically. He was a young scientist, and in the late 80s, he was hired to work as... I don't know what his actual job description was.
I don't think he even knew what it was.
No, he didn't know. He was just hired and said, hey, you're going to be doing this thing, working on this thing and trying to figure out how this little reactor works. And the reactor, and he was like, cool, what is it? And you'll be briefed when you're there.
Isn't that weird, though? You're not told what you're working on.
No. And he just read
So
through, and they
weird.
all had these little code names for different things.
Yep,
And
yep.
I think that's where he got into where it got scary, because they were how to weaponize it, and there was some crazy little name for it. But basically, Bob Lazar was a scientist who was brought into Area 51 and was
S4, Area S4.
which is a thing called S4, which is another bunker where he was.
It's miles away. It's how many kilometers? It's in the same vicinity, but it's a different branch. of Area 51.
But he was brought in as a scientist to figure out this reactor, and what this reactor did was created gravity, essentially. Anti-gravity, or however you want to say it.
It was
Gravity or anti-gravity.
It was technology that they were going to use for force fields, right? Had the potential to be for a force field.
Yeah. And so
That's just fuck.
that's crazy. Yeah, and I mean, he thought it was the coolest thing ever, and he hadn't.
But you would though. You would.
He hadn't seen a spaceship at this point or anything. It was only when he was brought in another time, and the front door to the hangar was open, and he walked in, and they said, "Eyes forward, don't look." And he went, "Whoa!" and put his hand on it, and it was a spaceship. And there's been so many accounts of people and all saying that Bob Lazar was the guy that blew the whistle on it. Now, was it 1991? I think on the news.
It was just out of the 80s.
Yeah.
After he finished up, and then
he blew the whistle on it.
yeah,
basically.
because after he got fired, yeah, and then he went there with someone else he worked with or a friend, and then camped there.
Yeah, so that because he knew the dates.
Yeah,
so
he knew the dates. He knew what times they were working and gonna fly it.
Yeah, at
to
night.
go fly at night and have these handy cams and stuff. And then they got actually caught out. I listened. Yeah.
Yeah, he started
They
taking his
caught
friends
out.
there, going,
Fucking-
"Watch this at 8:30 at night. You're
Yeah.
going to see some lights hover above there. There's no noise. There's no propulsion system.
Yeah.
Nothing like this. And you'll watch it do maneuvers that you haven't seen a plane do or anything like that. And he also, from his account, he went into the ship, I think, once.
Yeah,
He
he
got
went into the ship and then got to see there was no controls,
No wiring.
no wiring. There's no dashboard of buttons or any joystick or anything like that. It's
No.
just and then the level I think it wasn't really small, but it wasn't really big area. I can't remember what the number he said how tall you had to be in it.
Yeah, he said it would be based for smaller people, but
Yeah.
he never spoke of aliens per se. But the ship or the craft he worked on was not from here.
No.
And
Definitely
there was
not.
9 of them, and he said they're all completely different witches. And he said some actually looks like an archaeological dig had found them. They'd been around that long. He just said, but
Probably used to build the pyramids.
well, who knows? Who knows if they dug it up or whatever? But
Yeah.
pretty interesting character. You should definitely check out pretty much any interview with Bob Lazar and how he speaks about it. And the US government finally came out after 30 years. 30 years of annoying the shit out of this guy, basically terrorizing him, making him not exist.
They ruined his life.
Yeah.
They destroyed his birth certificate.
Yeah. Social security, everything. Man, he didn't exist.
Yeah.
Stating that he'd never worked at Los Alamos
And
base or anything.
he went to MIT and they took away all his qualifications.
Everything.
Oh, man, that's so fucked.
That's so bad. And then after 30 years, they finally said, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He worked on
Yeah.
unexplained flying objects.
I remember him saying as well, like, how he worked, like, what made him really fucked off and annoyed him was that, obviously from his experience, but he gets lumped in with all the crazies who are about UFOs. And people would camp out on his lawn, like these absolute crackhead nutters being like, Bob, I know how you feel. And it's no, bro, you don't.
He's like, what the hell?
It's like, I don't like any of this. He's not about conspiracies. He actually hates all that shit. And he's actually not interested in aliens. He's interested in technology.
He's a tech geek, man.
He's all about the technology. But the technology that you just find. And
the funny thing is he's passed multiple lie detector tests, and the lie detector test multiple people that did it, they get harassed by the government. Why are you testing him? And they try and erase all the records of Bob getting tested and all that. And it's like, because he knows what it is. But basically, the thing that powered this reactor was an element called element 115. I think that's the one. And that was a big thing back then because he said, is this element 115. We didn't have anything with the weight or the potential strength. And that's what powered this reactor. And he kept going on about it. Well, I think in now 2013 is when humans were able to make element. And he was going on about it. Then he also said about how the ship, how the ship flies.
Yeah.
He said it flies on an angle, and then a few years ago, we saw the Navy pilots filming something flying through the air, and it was all over the television and shit, and it flew on an angle. And Bob's like, that's what I was telling you. Yeah,
and it's white. It's like a white color, and it just like zooms so fast. It's so quick.
It's pretty crazy, but
yeah.
To say that we're alone in the universe is a stupid idea, man. There's definitely something out there. One of these cats has worked on it. There's also like the Roswell thing. There's all these cylinders that fly through the air. Even only a few days ago, something was spotted up in the air again, and it's just been caught by like 50 people.
It's the Chinese.
The Americans said it was just flares in the sky, and like 50 people saw it, and they're like, nah, it's a triangle with fucking lights all over it. This is a totally different shape again, but they're trying to, people are trying to confirm it now, but pretty crazy stuff, and what that guy has had to go through in his life to get it. And he never wanted to like, I don't know. He never got financial gain from any of this. He had his life ruined. He just wanted other scientists to get on board and go, hey, what is this thing creating a force field?
And people should know.
Yeah.
Like, this is information being held from the public. I mean, that's the whole Roswell thing in 1947. Like, I watched that as well. And, like, that is also just heartbreaking as well.
Oh, it's crazy.
Like, that poor lady just had like, her life ruined.
Yeah, destroyed, man.
Just because, like, they were living in Roswell, and this was a very patriotic American town, and then they were just like, nah, like, fuck yeah, because you saw what we were doing, and this little person wandering around, and
I know
it never happened. I know what I saw. No, never happened.
It sort of happened. Same sort of thing happened in 1996 in Brazil. There's a doco on that's floating around. If you believe us or you don't, but in 1996 in Brazil, there's a town, I can't remember the name, but they had basically a Roswell of their own. A ship crashed. They all saw it crash. It was in the middle of the day. Yeah. And everyone saw it, and 3 young girls witnessed a little brown, that's racist, a little figure leaning against a cinder block wall and struggling. And they locked with it, and it was not from around. They all ran away and all that sort of thing, but they said it didn't look healthy. And then they said the weirdest thing is the American government was right on almost on the doorstep. And they were shocked. The whole town was shocked how quickly the Americans came in and recovered this whole thing. And it was just like, no, you saw nothing. And it's like, what? But pretty crazy. All I can say is that the stuff that Bob's gone through, Bob Lazar, trying to tell the world about this sort of thing is nuts. And some of the factual things about it is obviously like the elements. It creates a force field. He said when you stand under it, you can't directly under it, you can't see it because it's warping.
But the way like you try to touch it, you just bounce off it.
Well, yeah, that's pushing against you.
It's pushing against you.
And he said if you stand under it, it's almost invisible because of. And one of the buzzy things about that ship, he said inside, he said because there was always like a, what is it? What do you call them? Fuck. Soldier. There's like a soldier with him, like security.
Marine?
Yeah, there's like a Marine with him, and he said inside he's working on what he's trying to figure out how this thing properly flies and works, and that's what they're trying to do, is trying to figure out what's the essential power source of this and can we make it. And I think the Americans are trying to weaponize it. But he said there was another crew working inside the craft, and their job was trying to figure out the archways, because the archways were metal, but they were also transparent. So they could be like completely metal, and he said when you walked behind it or walked away from it, it went completely see-through. And he said he wanted to ask, but he never got to ask. He wasn't allowed to talk to that part of the crew. Like everyone had an assigned job. Like this is your job. This is your job. But the weirdest thing was no wiring, no steering wheels. He said it must be where you place the little anti-gravity thing is how it flies. Pretty nuts though, man.
And the Americans got it and were like, how do we weaponize it?
Yeah, well, that's the scary thing, because that's what Bob said.
How do we weaponize it?
He says... And that's because if you can weaponize this and you can create like a force field around you, well, then nothing...
Oh, you're unstoppable. Unstoppable.
Nothing can penetrate you. It's like you can...
Not even a nuclear weapon could take you out.
No. And I think...
Oh, I mean, in your ship.
Was it like a year ago, the US Congress is now having to front up, and they were asking the military... It's actually gone to Congress. It's actually all out in the open, and the Congress is saying to the military... people are filming stuff on their phones outside of commercial jet airliners, and can you please explain what this is? And the American government's like, no, we don't have that technology. We don't know what it is. So it's all out in the open now.
Yeah, but you could control media and everything so easily back in the day, right? I mean, newspaper, television, it was all in the back pocket.
Now everyone
whips out their phone. It's just like, well, I saw this. But then what's also crazy with the AI stuff that's coming out now with how you manipulate images and change imagery, that's going to add another whole fucking like, it's another excuse you could use, being like, it's just all like some AI, some kid or some bullshit. Like maybe, but it's just too much. It's just too much evidence. It's just too much. But what I want to know mostly is like because I remember that I was listening to Bob Lazar saying that they had a planet, like a name of a planet that this aircraft came from. But I can't remember what it's called, but it's like they knew where it's from, or they could trace to the area.
Or like the solar system.
The solar system where it came from. Sorry, not the planet, solar system. And I'm like, fuck that. I'm like,
That's hectic, when you think about that. Like, they actually know where it's come from. But they're basically, a lot of them that have been spotted as well have been cylinder shapes. Like that's a lot of people find, like the cylinders or the orbs. One of my good friends one of my closest friends has had he's a very smart person, sober, I'll say that. And he told me about it actually at a time in his life where he was as straight and narrow as ever. And he told me, and he goes, dude, I never wanted to say this, but I saw lights in the sky between Ruakaka, the Waipu Straits. So he was driving back and forth, and he pulled over at a lookout with a bunch of other people on the road and saw a massive, kind of big, he didn't know whether it was the moon or the sun. He goes, nah, it's too small for those things. And he goes, the way it was hovering above the water. And he's like, what is that? And he pulled over by a lookout and saw it and said, what the hell is that? And he loves his science. He's a qualified electrician, so he knows a bit. And he just couldn't figure this thing out, floating above the water. Kept driving, got to another lookout, pulled over, and there was a bunch of other people there standing there looking at this. And he said, and this was about sort of between 9 and 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And he said to them, what is that thing? And they said, we don't know. And he said, the weirdest thing happened. This thing just shifted up and then went and vanished.
Took off.
Into nothing. And he said, the people there, he just said everyone just shit themselves.
Fuck yeah.
Just went,
you
fuck!
You would shit yourself.
Because there's no plume from like rocket fuel or anything. He said the way this thing moved and then just went bang. And he said it wasn't a spotlight, nothing like that. It's the way it took off. And he said it was the most eerie thing. And he just said he never wanted to speak about it because he was like, you sound like a crazy person.
Yeah.
But then he said, I saw it with a bunch of other people and they're probably thinking the same thing. You don't want to talk about it. Whereas someone like Bob was like, hey.
Well, eventually, I think he just got, like, he really wanted to exploit it, right? Like, he really wanted to, well, eventually, he wanted to. And then getting shut down so much. I mean, if people are trying to shut you down from saying something, you're obviously onto something.
Oh, yeah.
So that, that speaks volumes of even more so why you should speak the truth of what's happening.
How cool would it be to actually...
How cool.
Oh, my God.
How cool.
Like, to think about the stuff that it actually is around. And in the Roswell thing, I think that lady was saying about basically some ships crashed. And we all know that the Roswell thing, it was all... it was kind of like something went on out there.
Yeah.
And the Americans have always, the government,
They keep it real quiet.
have tried to say, no, nothing happened. It's like, dude, a whole fucking town
Yeah.
has gone bullshit.
Yeah.
We saw what happened.
Yeah.
Some
There's always evidence about it and writings and photos. But
ships
like,
crashed.
deny.
No, nothing happened here. But then she was saying about the metal. You can scrunch it up in your hand.
Yeah.
And she goes, it feels like air. It feels like nothing. And then you drop it and it goes from like a metal ball and just turns into like water. And then you can pick it back up and turns into like a metal ball. And she said, weighs nothing. You can't, when it's in like that's watery state, you can't cut it. You can't stab it, nothing. And she was playing with it as a little kid. And other people had got fragments of the accident at Roswell and had the metal, and they kept talking about the metal going, it's so weird. It feels like nothing, but it's metal. Yeah. Bizarre, but check out Bob Lazar. That guy's definitely...
Imagine getting hold of like any of that technology
Well,
and being able to like incorporate it into, let's say, like your own aircraft, like your Air Force. Because I imagine that's what like American military is planning.
Is
you incorporate it, you weaponize it, so you can just do whatever the fuck you want. Which America, they like to do that anyway.
Well, yeah, that's
the
whole thing is you weaponize
the kings of
it.
war crimes.
But like, I think that's what Bob has alluded to as well, is that he said it actually becomes, it's so cool. And it's something we've never seen, and we don't know how any of this works.
Because with all of our knowledge of our physics, with our mathematics, with our arithmetic, like none of that means shit. Throw all of that out the window.
Yeah.
To basically try and understand
the periodic
it.
scale, like it's just like, whoop, get rid of all that sort of stuff. Like
periodic table.
Yeah, periodic table, sorry. I'm not a scientist. But
periodic table,
yeah, it's just kind of like, it's gone. And... yeah, to have that, but that's the other side of it as well. It's fucking scary
because you have nothing to compare it to.
Well, he said, imagine going back to what is it, like the Victorian era, and drop it, saying, "Here's a nuke, go play with it and see what happens."
Here's an engine.
Yeah, here's an engine.
Before I would have been go medieval times and give them like a kettle.
Give them a fucking iPhone.
Oh yeah. It's alien.
What is this? Alien technology.
It's a witch.
Yeah.
Burn them.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I was talking about the other day, going a bit off topic, but I can't remember the guy's name who invented the concept of washing your hands.
Oh, wow.
Like, it had because it came from like a lot of people back in the day not washing their hands when they do surgery, right? In medical. So there's no such thing as hygiene. It's not a thing. You're just working on someone who's dying, right? Trying to amputate, just cut their leg off. Fuck it. Like, let's go in the freezer and see what we've got. I mean, hey, don't know if it's quite like that, but I can't remember his name, but basically the idea of what he got arrested, got put in a cell.
What, for being a crazy person?
Yeah. Because about washing your hands. about washing your hands
God.
is hygienic, and that's what you should do because people were dying in these.
So
medical
everyone's just
practices.
eating their own shit.
Well, it's just like, imagine like you bleed out everywhere, and then it's like then you contaminate someone's body with your fucking terrible bacteria and fucking whatever, who knows what's on your fingers.
Yeah,
And then you're just giving people more diseases.
Oh, God.
No wonder why people only live to like 30. It's just
The ripe old age.
yeah, but it's like it's interesting with like shoot the what's the saying, like shoot the messenger, not messenger, like shoot, like the first person who comes out and does something, they just get like shut down. Like how could so dumb. So
I'd love to know if people if see this, if they can comment on what they think. We know that other stuff is out there. The governments are coming out because people are seeing too much shit.
It's too much. And you got phones. You can't control
and
what
people actually
see.
have actually like Bob have the credentials, and so many people are like, that's the guy that worked on how the thing flies.
Yeah, there's just too many cases. And then even evidence came out, like there was a note written to him when he was there, and then it's there. Like and they were like, I worked with him. It's like
it's funny because
you go.
They'd like denied it that he worked at like Los Alamos base or whatever, and then like he knew the whole base and the people in the base, and they all knew Bob, and they're like, what the fuck? And then there's like actual statements of them saying, he did work here.
But it's also scary for other people, which I think is like, because if you come out and you back him up, you risk everything as well. You risk your life. You're risking getting proper cancelled. Like your birth certificate's removed, your education's removed, your job licenses, all your research. Your family's under threat. People follow you.
Yep.
Like that's what you risk if you come out and say that shit, which is fucking terrifying.
You know what, man? I think we're gonna see some stuff in the next. If you get to be lucky enough or fortunate enough to live, I don't know, the next 30 years or whatever, you might really see some stuff and go, wow, now you can actually go and see one, or they are using it in modern day technology for some way. The scary thing is we don't want to like cut into it the wrong way, like Bob said before he had started. Yeah, there was a small nuclear explosion. Apparently his predecessor, or like the person before him who was working on it, tried to cut into it. Didn't go so well.
No. Shit. That's so scary.
Yeah, then they said it was a small nuclear testing, and it wasn't. Dude fucking blew up. But that's the other side of it, is going, the technology. Now, here's the other point of it that I heard a great statement out of this. That was on the JRE, and Rogan said it. And it's, so we think about UFOs and all that sort of stuff, and we think about us as humans. There's chimpanzees, apes, and all this now in the forests or Amazon or wherever they are, and they are learning to hunt.
Oh yeah, they can use spears,
and they're using spears, and they're making tools, and they're making the little sharp rocks and all that on it. And it's like, so we are witnessing the dawn of the caveman again. But then it's like, is that what this other being is witnessing?
Yeah, with us. Yeah,
it's going, here's the dawn of technology. So they're seeing, like, we can see basically our basic how humans evolved, and then like I think aliens are seeing like the start of our technology evolve now, and going, well, it's all coming out. So
and I think like with AI that's coming out right now, that's going to accelerate a lot of this. Automation is just getting out of control. Like automation technology is just like, it's amazing.
Well, I heard another good theory about this whole UFO sort of thing as well. Is how they move erratically through the sky, and they said all this crazy movement, and that's the thing is about the US soldiers or the US fighter pilots that were filming it, and they had it on infrared, and at the base they were flying to, they had it on their radar as well. They were all had it on radar, going between infrared and this other radar, so they could keep up with it. And it's flying on an angle, like Bob said. It's fucking doing all this crazy shit. Now, it had no, obviously it has no like external trail, like a jet fuel or anything like that. No smoke, no nothing. And the weird thing is it kind of vanished from the fighter pilot's radar, and then was at the base, which was 60 miles away, within 1 second. And so, but here's the weird thing. it knew where they were going as well. That's the buzzy thing. It knew where they were going, and it was there within a second. And here's a theory where all the crazy movement that we see these things doing, because they can dart through the sky and go up, down, in and out, and all this sort of thing without ever having any issues. And I think Bob was saying that basically what you might be seeing with your eye is how gravity is getting distorted, and it may look darting around, but it's already at its point of destination. You're just seeing with your eyes what happens when gravity gets distorted around it. So it's jumbling your eyes, and it's
because we can't comprehend it.
We can't comprehend it. Our brains,
we can't keep up with.
We don't know. So we're seeing a distorted vision of where it was actually going, but at a later date, it's already over here. But that's what happens when
it's like time travel.
It's warping time. Yeah. It's going so fast that it's warping it.
Human eye can't even.
And to you, it might look like it's doing all this, but it's not even. It's not even there.
Yeah,
it's already over here.
It's like our time perception doesn't match up with how we measure time.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's
crazy, eh? Like when you think about that,
crazy.
Like you might, oh wow, it's going like through the sky. Like they're not even there at the moment. They're over here. That was when they were there.
Yeah.
But now they're over here, and it's like, oh fuck, this is pretty cool. I'd love to see a spaceship.
Oh, of course. I'd love to go on one. I just love to be able to. I don't even know what I'd do. I just want to. I'd be just to witness what another type of being could create, like to travel or weapons or. I don't actually know if I give a fuck about weapons. It's more about like the technology of what they use, or if it's all in the mind, or it's just that do they talk? Do anything come out?
I think they're definitely. I think they're definitely. Well, that's the thing with that one that happened in Brazil. Two of the girls. So there's 3 girls, and they saw this creature, this being, and 2 girls ran. They ran away. One stayed and locked eyes with it, and it locked eyes, and it said, help, 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 help. But in her head, not vocally.
Yeah.
And she freaked out, and then...
Yeah, you would. I mean, I would.
Yeah, and ran away. But the same, there's a common denominator here with all these people, like the Roswell thing in Roswell, and then the Roswell thing in Brazil and all that. When the aliens or other beings, small people, little people... when they die, apparently the stench stays for weeks in the town and everything. You can't wash out any clothes. Like the stench is just crazy. But they reckon in Brazil, one of the soldiers tried to like help this, and he died a few hours later just based on touching because of the bacteria that he got. Because I mean, you got to think it's not from around here. It's probably struggling to breathe.
Yeah.
Whatever it breathes might be different than what we breathe, and then also what it's carrying on its skin as well. So, yeah. But it sounded pretty crazy from what she said. And that was in 1996, and apparently the whole town saw the cylinder thing like falling down really slowly. Like in the middle of the afternoon, just like falling down, crashed, and then but it's a sort of similar thing to the Roswell. People saw it happen. And there was, I think a lot of the beings died apart from one or something survived. And in the Roswell one. So they were saying, but there's definitely spaceships. They have been recovered.
Just crashing and then...
Go run into S4, get them out.
Yeah.
Start playing with them.
Yeah. I want that medal.
So I want to take it for a hoon, eh?
Yeah. How fast can you go?
Oh, I'd crash straight away.
Same. I'd probably die just trying to like even get it to fly.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even fly a plane or a helicopter. I'm too dumb to probably even do that. So
yeah, man.
I mean, I'd try it, but I would probably need some help.
Pretty rad thing though. But check out Bob Lazar. Look into this guy and search his history for what he's done, not only as a scientist. He's done some pretty funny stuff for his friends, building funny tools and all that. He built a fucking laser gun. Do you see that? He built he built a fucking laser gun for his mates, and it just destroys everything. It's like fucking hell.
Having a brain like that.
Yeah, but that's what he's like.
Yeah.
That's why he has essentially got hired, because he was a young physicist, and he put a rocket into his
his car, right?
Into what is a Corolla or a Honda or something? Put a rocket like a rocket engine. They made a rocket powered.
Just a genius.
Because he was bored.
Yeah.
And he's the guy that's worked on these things and briefly did. And yeah, it's creepy, but it's really cool. And there's been so much proof about this.
So much proof.
The government came out and said, yeah, he's not full of shit. They said it took 30 years, but they came out and said, yeah.
Eventually.
He did work on what he worked on, what he's saying.
It's an amazing story.
But he never talks about aliens per se. He just talks about...
He talks about the UFO, he talks about the technology.
Yeah, he went into one spaceship.
Aircraft.
He got to go in there like once or twice.
Yeah. He keeps it very specific.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And it's the same story for the past 35, 40
Hasn't
years.
changed.
Hasn't changed. Multiple lie detector tests. Multiple people come out saying Bob Lazar was the guy. Yes, I worked at this base. Yes, I worked at S4. I don't want to talk about it, but he's the guy that worked on the anti-gravity. And it's like, and it was based on this element 115, which didn't exist, but he knew how they flew and all that. And
it's crazy. All right, this is our short one. We're cutting it there.
We out. Aliens exist.
We out.